this brings us to part 5 of the life skills module, and we are going to look at unit 5, which discusses the roles and responsibility of the life skills teacher. First of all, of course, the teacher is responsible for teaching the life skills curriculum and providing guidance and support in career and schooling options. In addition, the teacher needs to take responsibility for the administration of life skills as it is stipulated in the life skills subject policy as well as the policy for non-promotional subjects. Furthermore, the teacher needs to collaborate with a counselling support group to promote and coordinate counselling at the school as well as provide teachers with the necessary counselling materials. Furthermore, the teacher is responsible for counselling learners, to monitor the records on counselling done, and to complete the school summary register on counselled cases. The teacher should complete the HIV and AIDS management unit monitoring report form on the HIV OVC life skills and forward it to the Regional AIDS Committee's coordinator. Then the teacher should also coordinate, request and dispatch the cumulative record cards as well as assist teachers on the completion of it and then do the final checking to see that it's correct. The teacher also serves as the coordinator of the learning support group. And lastly, the teacher is responsible to coordinate and check the completion of the continuous individual OVC registers and then forward the summary of that to the regional office. We continue with the duties on the next slide. First of all, once again, the teacher needs to coordinate and monitor the donor funding for the OVCs, for example, the FAWENA program. Next, she or he needs to collaborate with the school principal to take the initiative in the implementation of the prevention and management of learners' pregnancy policy. The life skill teacher needs to provide the necessary counselling as well as necessary prenatal information and make arrangements around pregnancy leave for pregnant learners. The teacher has to attend the life skills and counselling cluster meetings as well as the learner support cluster meetings. Then the teacher is also responsible to refer learners with learning, physical and emotional difficulties to ensure that they receive the appropriate support. A life skill teacher is also there to assist the parents and the guardians of our orphans and vulnerable children with the application for exemption from school development fund as well as hostel fees. Then the teacher should also file all the documents provided by the parent or guardian as proof of vulnerability in the cumulative record cards. In addition, the teacher has to organize the special conditions and arrangements for learners with specific needs as it is stipulated in the National Curriculum for Basic Education. Then she needs to assist the school management in dealing with severe cases of misconduct by both learners and teachers. In the very last place, the teacher is responsible to coordinate the Window of Hope in primary school and then the My Future is My Choice program in secondary schools. Let's look in more detail at the referring procedure for learners who need counselling. Learners are referred by the registered teacher or the life skills teacher to any of the following: the head of the learning support group, the head of the counselling group, or the first aid teacher. And the referral may be made on the following basis: specific or global learning impairments, other medically diagnosed disabilities, as well as learning disadvantages. The last one, also in the case of socio-emotional behavioral problems. Now, what is the purpose of the cumulative record cards and how do we complete them? The form on the counselling support provided to learners, and I need you to refer to Annex 5 here, should be used and kept in the teacher counsellor's file. Each case is given a unique code name. Notes on the counselling process include the following: the nature of the problem, the actions that have been taken, the outcomes of these, the recommendations that has been made for further action. Now we look at another role of the life skill teacher, and this entails as being the coordinator of the learning support group, and it includes amongst others the following: The coordination of teachers involved in the learning support group to promote the importance of learning support to all teachers, advising and monitoring the learning support group teachers, seeing to the completion of the necessary forms by the learning support group teachers, and making sure that the observation profile form is handled confidentially as well as regularly updated. Making sure that there is a copy of the profile added to the cumulative record card on an annual basis, and motivating the teachers to include learning support activities in their daily teaching. Furthermore, the life skill teacher needs to visit classes to assist teachers with learning support, and she or he should also organize meetings between the learning support group and the counseling support group to discuss collaborative actions with the involved learners. Another action that should also be taken is the referral of learners with more severe learning problems to the regional school counsellor or inclusive education. Last of all, the teacher is also responsible to notify parents in writing when their child or what their child will receive in regards to afternoon learning support. We continue to the next slide, and now we look at how the life skill teacher assists the school managing in dealing with severe cases of misconduct by learners or teachers. To succeed in the classroom, it's very important to know how to manage learners as well as to respond appropriately to their behavior. Now that corporal punishment has been abolished, it has become even more important to establish and implement alternative techniques and discipline or to discipline learners. These may include prevention as well as intervention programs and strategies. And the aim is to change the learner's behavior and to support the teachers and parents in maintaining discipline. The school must choose the disciplinary approaches that will be appropriate for their situation, for example, conflict resolution or problem solving. Teachers should implement positive discipline techniques and refrain from blaming, pushing, shouting, or using sarcasm, as these as such can also be seen as abusive behavior. A constructive approach to discipline is necessary, and this involves the learners as well in making the school rules in accordance with the school policy. Last of all, if this type of approach, the constructive approach, is used, it may significantly reduce disciplinary problems. Now we look at the two very important extracurricular programs on enhancing children's life skills in relation to their relationships and specifically their sexuality. Now, as we said, there are two. The first is the Window of Hope, which is aimed at learners from 10 to 14 years old, so it's your primary school learners. Then you've got My Future is My Choice, which is the program that is aimed at the youths from 15 to 24 years of age. I've drawn up a table to quickly show you the differences between these two programs. As we said, Window of Hope aims at learners from 10 to 14 years, while My Future is My Choice works with learners from 15 to 24 years of age. And there we particularly start looking at skills and the information needed to delay sexual activity. The Window of Hope reaches learners at an early age when we assume that the majority of them are not yet sexually active. In comparison, we've found that the majority of 17 to 18 years old may already be sexually active, and therefore they need to be able to negotiate and practice safer sex. And this includes information on contraception and the consequences of early pregnancy. For the Window of Hope, we make use of teachers and adults to present the program, and for My Future is My Choice, they use peer educators as well as teachers and other adults. Next, we have a look at the life skills monitoring and evaluation form. We know that every learner has a portfolio, which is a confidential document which should be kept in a safe place. In grade 5 to 9, as well as in grade 11, the learners' portfolios are assessed at the end of each year, while in grade 10 and 12, the learners are assessed at the end of the second term because they are writing the external examinations. When we consider the assessment and evaluation of the learners, the following is important. Use the criteria for the assessment and evaluation as described in the NEED Manual, Life Skills Teaching and Assessment Guidelines, 2011, on page 10 to 15. When we refer to the Life Skills Subject Policy, we must very carefully consider the National Subject Policy Guide for non-promotional subjects because it will guide the subject management, but it will also indicate the scope that is left for teachers to take initiative in presenting the subject content as well as facilitating learning. Then we come to another important document, the National Curriculum for Basic Education. And when we refer specifically to life skills, we see that the goals, aims and competencies as well as the core skills and key learning areas are all captured in the National Curriculum for Basic Education, which has been effective since 2010. And it has also been identified in relation to Namibia's Vision 2030. The purpose of this curriculum is to guide schools in organizing the teaching and learning process and also to provide a coherent framework to ensure that there is consistency in the implementation of the curriculum in schools throughout the country. Now, basic education is subdivided into 5 phases, and we need to look at the correlation or the relation between teaching life skills in each of these phases. And I have a short summary on the slide here that I quickly want us to go through. In pre-primary, the main aims is to lay a foundation for education and lifelong learning. In the lower primary, which is grades 1 to 4, the learner is provided with the life skills, talking about the world around them to create a better understanding, and they also start touching upon HIV/AIDS education. In the upper primary, grade 5 to 7, the HIV/AIDS education is intensified because now the learner is better able to understand the facts, the issues and the attitudes, and we are preparing the learner for the transition to puberty and the changes and the pressures that will bring. In the junior secondary phase, grades 8 to 10, we provide learners with the following opportunities: to extend their knowledge and skills, to strengthen their values and attitudes, to prepare to make informed choices, especially when considering future career opportunities. In the last stage, the senior secondary phase, which is grade 11 and 12, the main purpose is to prepare learners for adult life, their tertiary studies, or direct entry to employment at the end of grade 12. Now we start with Unit 6. Unit 6 focuses on the phases of evolution of the world of work, as well as career counseling theories. Let's have a brief look at the learning outcomes that are important here. The first one is to be able to evaluate the phases of evolution of the world of work, from a hunters to the bioeconomy phase, and to conclude which phase is applicable to Namibia. The second outcome is to evaluate the selected counseling theories, and these include the trade theory of Williamson, Holland's theory, Ginsberg's and Gottfried's development theory, as well as Krimboltz's social learning theory. Lastly, it includes the postmodern theory of Savikas. Another outcome is to conclude which of the above career counseling theories would suit Namibia best. You should also be able to identify some valuable career websites, and lastly, be able to examine ideal emotional, cognitive and cognitive behaviors of an employee. Let us look at what the world of work looks like in today's society. First of all, it has changed from hierarchies to a more flattened structure. This means now anyone can speak and interact with anybody else. It has moved away from fixed working hours to flexible working hours. Employees can now connect to people and information at any place, at any time, from any device possible. It has moved from hoarded information to shared information. Sharing information is part of what is driving the future of business. it is crucial for employees to share their ideas, thoughts, and content. We've moved away from a fear-based leadership to empowering and inspiring others. Smart leaders realize the usefulness of removing obstacles from the paths of employees to help them to become more successful. We've moved away from on-premise to the cloud. That refers to cloud technologies which are rapidly making their way into organizations as they are easier and cheaper to connect and engage people as well as information. We've also moved away from email to other secondary forms of communication. Email is no longer the most effective way to communicate and collaborate with co-workers. Let's continue with the world of work on the next slide. And we look at climbing the corporate ladder now has become creating your own ladder. Employees now have the unique opportunity to share their expertise, passions and interests in a very public way inside their companies. We've also moved away from fragmented to being connected and engaged. Traditionally, employees in different departments or geographies didn't communicate with one another, but nowadays, as information is shared, different departments collaborate with one another. Last of all, we've moved away from working at the office to working anywhere. Employees now simply need to connect to work, whether it's from the home office, inside a coffee shop, or even in a taxi on their way to work. This brings us now to the different important career counseling theories, and we'll first look at the trade theory of Williamson. This was developed in the 1930s and it was the first comprehensive theory of counseling. It is known, as we said, as the trait and factor theory. Although it's originally vocationally oriented, the approach was modified and it's soon seen as the generic approach to counseling and psychotherapy. Many of the aptitude, personality and interest tests, as well as the occupational information materials that we use today, have emerged from this approach. Our second theory is Holland's theory. Now, the fundamental principles of this theory is that career selection is based on your own personality and it is actually an expression of your personality. According to Holland, particular personality types search for educational environments that correspond to their personality types. He also maintained that individuals were more content in a working environment that corresponded with their personality type. The next theory is Ginsberg's theory, and this concluded that occupational choice is a process. In other words, when he examined different people from different age groups, he determined that occupational choice was not a one-time decision, but a developmental process which occurred over several stages as well as sub-stages. Next, we look at Gottfriedsen's development theory. Now, this concentrated on the development of self-concept, as Gottfriedsen saw this as central in the overall developmental process. Images of occupations for young children, according to him, were more based on fantasy than reality. And then as the child started to develop, these images started to become more concrete and occupational performances started becoming closely linked to the child's evolving self-concept. He also maintained that career development was influenced more by public aspects of self-concept than the private aspects of the child's self-concept. The fifth theory is that of Krimbold's, and it's Krimbold's social learning theory. Now, this is described as a social learning theory, and it developed ideas about supporting indecision in clients, for instance. According to the theory, learning tasks take place through observations as well as through direct experiences. Krimbold maintained that the process of career selection should be simplified and based primarily on life events that were influential in determining the career selection. The sixth theory is the career construction theory by Savikas, And the main idea here is that individuals understand and develop career behavior through the personal meaning they give to their surroundings. And it is influenced, according to Savikas, if not determined, very strongly by their social values. The meaning that individuals bring to their career behavior and their decision making is constructed through their view of reality. And reality is seen as a construction based on personal values and a view that the individual has of the world. When it comes to career choice, it is seen as an interactive and interpreted process based on what is meaningful for the individual in their relationship with others. In addition, career construction involves people making choices for transitions based on personality traits, development of their self-concept, as well as the influences of their social context. Lastly, it's important to note that it entails 3 components, namely vocational personality, career adaptability, as well as life themes. Now, after we've considered the previous content, now we come to looking at the context we find ourselves in at the moment. What theory will be best suitable for Namibia? And we can say that it will be one that is suitable and useful across cultures, one that highlights the importance of society as well as the environment, one that will consider the individual differences of every person, like gender, values, sexual orientations, ability, disabilities, etc. It is also one that will contemplate the interaction of the individual with the social system, including educational institutions, peers, family, media, community groups, as well as the workplace. In addition, it should consider interaction with the environmental social system, and this includes the geographical location, political decisions, historical trends, globalization, socioeconomic status, as well as the employment market. It will also consider the career counselors. They should be ones that are encouraged to learn about other careers and frameworks and theories, and also be able to utilize the ideas that are most relevant to their own cultures. Now we consider something that deals with work, and specifically how attitude influences work. We know that when we go to work, we always go there with a certain attitude. Your attitude as well as your behavior at work has an impact on your job satisfaction. There are certain attitudes and behaviors that are favored by employers. Attitudes have several different components, namely cognitive, affective, and behavioral components. And these need to be taught to our learners so that they can be informed of how each of these can influence their chances of being employed. The first one that we look at is the emotional behavior. And here it is useful to note that when you have uncontrolled emotional behavior, it can seriously harm your professional reputation as well as your productivity at work. There are many stressful situations also in school, and it may become hard sometimes to manage your emotions, but it remains very important that you do so. No matter what a situation is, it is important to note that we are always free to choose how we react to them. When it comes to positive emotions, we know that most people don't need any strategies to manage these. It generally does not affect others in a negative way. As long as we share our positive emotions constructively as well as professionally, they are wonderful to have in every workplace. The next component of your attitude is your cognitive behavior. Cognitive behavior refers to the ability to gain meaning and knowledge from experience as well as information. So it's more than just learning the information, it's also the ability to think about the information, to process it and speak about it, and apply it to other previously acquired knowledge. The third component of attitude is the cognitive behavior, and this is an aspect of mental processes or behavior directed towards action or change. It includes your impulses, your desires, volition, as well as striving. It is, in other words, the behavioral component which centers on individual acting in a certain way towards something. Now, what are the ideal emotional, cognitive, and cognitive behaviors that employers seek in an employee? The following attitudes in the workplace are favored. Good employees respect and value their fellow employees. They have a positive can-do attitude. They are courteous and friendly. They meet their deadlines and they take responsibility. They have good attendance and they are punctual. That then brings us to the end of Unit 6. We'll now go over to the very last unit, Unit 7, which deals with the relationship of multiple intelligences with life skills as well as career counseling. Our learning outcomes in this unit includes the relationship between multiple intelligences and life skills as well as career counseling. A definition of human intelligence, looking into what multiple intelligences involve, what are the 4 pillars of learning, the criteria of multiple intelligence as well as the principles of multiple intelligence, the 9 intelligences of Gardner, particularly the key points of the multiple intelligence theory, examining the relationship that multiple intelligences have with life skill, the possible careers suitable for the multiple intelligences are investigated. In addition, career choice inventories to guide career counseling are discussed. And then finally, we need to discuss the statement that career skills are also life skills. First of all, the definition of human intelligence and multiple intelligences. Human intelligence has been described as the adaptation to the environment, which is the key to understanding both what intelligence is and what it does. Such adaptation may occur in a variety of settings. A learner in school may learn the material he or she needs to know in order to do well in a course, while a physician treating a patient with unfamiliar symptoms will learn about the underlying causes of the disease. Multiple intelligence, on the other hand, in recent years has been discussed especially by Howard Gardner, and it suggests that traditional psychometric views of intelligence are too limited. Gardner wrote in The Frames of Mind, the theory of multiple intelligences, that all people have different kinds of intelligences, and he proposed that there are 8 intelligences, maybe 9, and this possible 9th is known as the existentialist intelligence. Now we will go forth and we will look at the intelligences at a later stage, but first let's look at the pillars of learning, and they are important in the sense that they help us in understanding the multiple intelligences. They are described as follows. First of all, the pillar of learning to know, which includes the mastering of the instruments of knowledge themselves. Then learning to do, which implies the application of what learners have learned into practice, which is closely linked to vocational technical education as well as work skills training. The third pillar is learning to live together, and this implies education taking 2 complementary paths. On one level, the discovery of others, and on the other, the experience of shared purposes. The last pillar is learning to be. This was conceptualized out of the fear that the world would be dehumanized as a result of technical change. It's based on the principle that the aim of development is the complete fulfillment of man as an individual, a member of family and community, a citizen and producer, as well as an inventor of techniques and a creative dreamer. The last point on this presentation in part 5 is the criteria for multiple intelligence. And we see that each intelligence demonstrates the following signs. It has the potential evidence of isolation in localized areas of the brain. It can be observed in isolated forms. It's identifiable core operations or sets of operations. It has distinctive developmental histories, including a set of expert or end-state performances. It has an evolutionary history as well as evolutionary plausibility. It can be supported from experimental psychological tasks, as well as be supported somewhat from psychometric findings. And lastly, it is susceptible to encoding in human symbolic systems. The basic principles of multiple intelligence include to teach through a variety of rich and engaging activities that evoke a range of intelligence, as well as encourage learners to work collaboratively as well as individually. When assessments are done, they should be integrated into learning, and learners need to play an active role by offering learners a number of choices for showing what they know about a topic. Please note in this case that it's counterproductive to label learners according to a particular intelligence. We know that all learners have all intelligences, and the whole spectrum should be nurtured by motivating them, fostering their learning, as well as strengthening their intelligences.